The doctor said there was nothing else they could do, so her parents took her to this wildlife sanctuary just to give her a moment of peace. That's where she met him, a baby lion named Kiko. They clicked instantly. She even left behind her little stuffed animal by accident. Weeks later, they came back. Just one last visit. Kiko saw her, walked off, and came back carrying that same toy in his mouth. And that's when everyone realized this wasn't just a lion cub. He remembered, he cared, and somehow he gave her one last miracle. She was 9 years old. Small frame, thinning hair under a knit cap, and those big eyes that always seemed a little too quiet for her age. She didn't talk much anymore, not since the last hospital visit. The one where the doctor didn't use words like recovery or next steps. That day, he looked at her parents and said, "There's nothing else we can do. It's time to focus on comfort." He meant hospice care. He meant the end. Her mom tried to nod, but couldn't. Her dad stared straight through the man like he wasn't even there. They'd fought for years. Experimental treatments, long drives to specialists, clinical trials they could barely afford. She'd endured all of it. Needles, tubes, waiting rooms with peeling paint and old magazines. And now all of it came down to this. Back home, the house was too quiet. They moved her bed into the living room so she could see the backyard. But she stopped asking to go outside. Stopped asking for anything, really. She just held that one stuffed lion, old, ragged, with a missing button eye. She used to name it different things depending on her mood. Storm, King, Max. Now she just called it him. When her parents tried to cheer her up with new toys or cartoons, she smiled, but it never reached her eyes. The only thing she ever lit up about anymore was animals, especially lions. Not the ones in cages, the wild kind, the ones that moved like they owned the earth. She said they weren't mean, just honest. She loved that they didn't beg for affection, they didn't cry, they just stood strong. "If I was a lion," she told her dad once, "I wouldn't be scared all the time." That hit him harder than the diagnosis. One night, when her breathing was ragged and sleep came in short bursts, she whispered, "I know I'm not going to get better, but before I go, can I see one? Like, not in a zoo, a real lion, just once, even from far away." Her dad didn't speak. He just reached out, held her hand, and nodded once. Then he stayed up until sunrise, calling sanctuaries, rescues, anywhere in the state with big cats and a heart. He didn't know how, but he was going to make it happen. He didn't sleep that night, just sat in the living room with his laptop open, refreshing the same search page over and over. Wildlife sanctuaries near me? Big cat rescue programs? Non-zoo lion encounters? Most links were useless. Tourist traps, donation scams, places where the animals were either stuffed, drugged, or locked behind triple glass. That's not what she wanted, not what she meant. She wanted something real. At 3:17 a.m., he found a barely formatted site with a grainy photo of a lion licking its paw and a single line, "We take in what the world leaves behind." He clicked. There wasn't even a menu, just a name, Pine Creek Sanctuary, and a phone number. He called it. No answer. He left a message. Tried not to sound desperate. "My daughter's sick. She loves lions. She just wants to see one." No response. He dozed off with the phone in his hand, only to be jolted awake by the ringtone an hour later. A woman's voice, rough with sleep. She didn't ask many questions, just said, "Come tomorrow, early. Bring blankets. It's open air." He stared at the phone for a long moment after she hung up, heart pounding. It was something. A door, maybe. He walked upstairs, kissed his daughter on the forehead, and whispered, "We're going for a drive in the morning." The next day, before the sun had finished rising, they were on the road. His wife packed warm clothes, a thermos of tea, her medications, and 2 of the stuffed animals she still slept with. The girl was quiet in the back seat, curled up in her pink blanket, holding her oldest lion, the one with the frayed mane and only one plastic eye. She didn't ask where they were going. She just kept watching the sky through the window like she already knew. The drive took 3.5 hours. As they left the city behind, the landscape started to breathe again. Flat open fields, wire fences, cattle grazing like they had all the time in the world. No signs, no flashy entrance. Just a gravel road and a gate with a small wooden plaque. Pine Creek. They were met by a woman in boots and a sun-bleached jacket. She looked tired in the way people do when they've seen too much suffering and still kept showing up anyway. "You're the ones with the girl?" she asked. He nodded. She looked at the little girl, gave her a small smile that didn't feel forced, and said, "Come on, he's over this way." They followed her down a winding dirt path through tall grass. No concrete, no cages, just open land, fenced with heavy wooden beams and metal mesh. And then they saw him. He was smaller than they imagined. A lion cub, probably 5, maybe 6 months old. Golden fur that looked too clean for the wild, paws too big for his body. He lay under a tree, dozing in the sun. When they stopped, he lifted his head, looked straight at them. Then slowly, carefully, he stood. The girl didn't move. She didn't blink. She just stared, mouth slightly open, like she was afraid even breathing might break the moment. The cub walked closer. No rush, no fear. Stopped just short of the fence and sat down, looking at her. Only her, like he'd been waiting. No one spoke. The wind rustled the dry leaves. A hawk called in the distance, but inside the space between them, just stillness. She reached out, fingers through the mesh, and he leaned in. Not enough to touch, but close. Then he laid down, stayed there. Her lips curled up at the corners. Not a big smile, but real. Soft. Present. When it was time to go, she asked if she could leave something behind. She took her stuffed lion, kissed it once on the nose, and tucked it under a flat stone by the fence. "So he doesn't forget me," she whispered. No one else heard, but maybe he did. Because as they walked away, the cub lifted his head again and watched her the whole time. She didn't say much on the way home. For the first hour, she just stared out the window, holding the blanket tight around her shoulders, the sunlight flickering across her face as the car curved through the hills. Her eyes weren't sad. They were far away, like she was still there, back at the fence, with the lion cub watching her like she mattered, like she wasn't just some sick kid being pushed around in a chair. At home, she went straight to the couch without asking. She didn't complain, didn't ask for her usual warm drink or cartoons, just pulled her sketch pad onto her lap and started drawing. Her mother stopped in the hallway, hand over her mouth. The pencil moved slowly, carefully, curved lines, a wide head, paws, a tail, big ears. The cub. She didn't say his name. She didn't need to. Everyone in the house knew who she was thinking about. By that evening, 4 more drawings were scattered across the floor, each one of him. In one, he was standing under the same tree, looking up at the sky. In another, she'd drawn them both, her in her wheelchair, him curled up next to her, their heads turned toward each other like they were whispering secrets. She started talking again. Not much, but just enough to show the spark was back. She asked if lions could dream, if he remembered her, if he missed the toy she left. And then, out of nowhere, she whispered, "Do you think he kept it?" Her dad didn't know what to say. He wanted to tell her yes. He wanted to tell her that lion cubs don't forget the people who love them. But all he could manage was a small nod and a quiet, "Yeah, I think he did." At night, when her parents thought she was sleeping, they'd hear her murmuring. Not in fear like before. No more midnight panic attacks. No more cries in the dark. Just quiet words, half-dreamed. "Don't forget me. I'll come back. You waited." Her mom once stood outside the door and listened with tears running down her face, hands clutched tight to her chest. The doctors called again. They asked how things were going. Her dad lied and said stable, just to buy time. In truth, she was weaker, pale again, sleeping more. But there was something different now. She didn't look like someone waiting to die. She looked like someone waiting for something else. She started keeping her sketchbook next to her pillow, and every morning the first thing she did was flip it open and add a new detail to the drawings. His eyes, the tree, the toy lion she'd left behind. In one picture, she even drew him with wings. "Just in case," she told her dad, "so he can find me if I don't make it back." He laughed, then went into the kitchen and cried over the sink so she wouldn't hear. The call came a week later, Ruth from the sanctuary. Her voice was different this time, lower, slower, like she was measuring her words carefully. "He's still here," she said. "The cub. He stays near the same tree every day. He doesn't really play with the others. Just kind of waits." He didn't say anything at first. Then he asked the only question that mattered. "Can we come back?" Ruth hesitated, but only for a breath. "Yeah, but if she's as sick as you said, I'd come soon." He hung up, walked straight into the living room, and told his wife. She didn't answer. She just turned toward their daughter, curled up under her blanket, sketching the same cub for the 15th time. Her eyes were heavy. Her voice was thinner than before. But when she heard the word Kiko, her head snapped up like someone had plugged her back into the world. "We're really going?" she whispered. He nodded. "Tomorrow morning." The drive felt longer this time. The air was hotter, the car quieter. She didn't talk much, just held her lion in one hand and the sketch pad in the other, flipping through the drawings like they were a map to some place only she could see. Her skin looked like tissue paper. Her hands were bones, but her eyes were alive, focused. When they arrived, Ruth was already waiting. She looked surprised at how pale the girl was. Maybe hadn't realized how fast things had gotten worse. Still, she smiled, knelt down by the wheelchair and said, "He's there, just like before." They wheeled her slowly down the dirt path, the wheels bumping over every stone. This time the cub wasn't under the tree. He was sitting upright, almost at attention by the fence, like he'd heard them coming from a mile away. As they approached, the girl raised her head. Her breath caught. "He's bigger," she whispered. He was. His paws looked stronger, his shoulders broader. But his eyes, those were the same, deep, golden, and still locked on her. She lifted a weak hand, didn't even reach through the fence, just held it up like a hello. Kiko took 2 slow steps forward. Then he stopped, looked down at the ground for a second, turned, and walked away. The girl blinked. Her hand dropped. Her dad leaned in, ready to comfort her, ready to explain that wild animals don't always remember, that it didn't mean anything. But she didn't look disappointed, just confused, watching. Then Kiko reappeared, and in his mouth, dragging carefully, delicately, was the stuffed lion, the exact same one she'd left under the stone. Muddy, a little torn, but unmistakable. He walked straight to the fence, laid it gently on the ground in front of her chair, and backed away. Sat. Looked at her. And the girl broke. Not with fear. Not with sadness. But with something that had been locked up inside her for months. She started crying. Not soft little tears, but full-body sobs that shook her whole frame. Her mom dropped to her knees. Her dad covered his face. Ruth turned away. No one said a word. Because what do you say when a lion cub remembers? The stuffed lion lay in the dirt, just outside the fence, and for a long moment no one moved. The girl stared at it like it couldn't be real. Her lips parted slightly, breath short, chest trembling with the effort just to stay upright in the chair. Her hand hovered, shaking, like she was afraid to touch it and make it disappear. Then, slowly, almost reverently, she leaned forward and picked it up. It was heavier than she remembered. Damp with earth, its faded fur crusted in places with dust and leaves. One of the button eyes had finally come loose. But she didn't care. She held it to her chest like it was made of gold, like it still held her scent. No one said anything. The staff had frozen on the path behind them. Ruth's hand was pressed against her mouth, eyes wide. Her dad had dropped to one knee beside the wheelchair, one arm around her back, the other hand gripping his own face as if trying to keep something inside. Her mother had started crying the second the lion cub laid the toy down, but Kiko didn't look at them. He only looked at her. Calm, still, sitting a few feet back like a silent sentry, not panting, not fidgeting, not distracted, just watching her, like nothing else existed in that moment but the two of them. The girl wiped her nose on her sleeve, turned her face up and whispered, "You kept it." And Kiko lowered his head, blinked once, slow, deliberate, and lay down, not like a house cat curling up for a nap. He stretched forward with his chin against the ground, ears relaxed, front paws crossed gently, in that strange, regal posture only lions seem to know. It wasn't a trick. It wasn't training. No one had told him to do it. This was something else. Something deeper. The girl reached down and pressed the stuffed toy through the gap in the fence. Just enough for his nose to touch. Kiko leaned in, nudged it softly with his snout, then pressed his head gently against the fence, and left it there. For minutes, neither of them moved, and then the girl did something no one expected. She laughed. A weak, breathy, half-broken sound, but real, full, alive. "He remembered me," she said. "I didn't think anyone would, but he did." Later, after the moment had passed, her parents would describe it the same way, as if the sun had come out from behind a storm and they hadn't realized how dark it had gotten. Her color didn't come back. Her voice didn't get stronger. But something had shifted. That night she asked for the sketch pad again, drew Kiko, but this time not under the tree or at the fence. She drew him beside her, walking next to her, his head just above her shoulder. "Because next time," she said, "he's not going to stay behind the fence." Something changed after that second visit. Not in her blood work, not in her x-rays, but in the way she opened her eyes in the morning. Before, she used to stare at the ceiling in silence for hours. Now she started asking for her sketch pad before breakfast, asking to sit by the window, asking when they could go back. The doctors called again. Her dad told them she was stable, and for once, it didn't feel like a lie. She still had bad days, still got winded from just sitting up too fast. But the gray that had been swallowing her from the inside wasn't winning so easily now. The staff at Pine Creek had taken a photo, just a candid shot of the moment Kiko laid down by the fence with her stuffed lion beside him. They posted it on their small Facebook page with a one-line caption, "Sometimes they remember who loves them." The post exploded. Within hours, it had been shared over 100,000 times. Someone found their personal story online, an old blog post her mom had written during the first years of her illness, and it went viral again. Suddenly, strangers were sending letters, stuffed animals, drawings, messages like, "I showed this to my son and he cried," or, "My daughter's in treatment too. Thank you for reminding us there's still light." News outlets reached out, but the family turned them down. This wasn't for headlines. It was for her. Just her. One night, she was strong enough to sit on the porch. She wore a hoodie 2 sizes too big, her sketch pad resting on her lap, the edges bent and soft from overuse. She looked up at her dad and said, "I think he's my lion now. Like, he found me, not the other way around." He didn't argue. He couldn't. That night, she drew a new picture. This time, she didn't draw herself in the chair. She drew herself walking, barefoot in grass, her arms out. Kiko behind her, tail raised, head high, like he was guarding her from the world. She titled it, "My Prince of the Savannah." The next day, she gave that picture to Ruth, who hung it inside the sanctuary's main office. Visitors started asking about the girl and the lion. Some of them cried just hearing the story, and still, every few days, they drove back, even if only for an hour, even if she could barely stay awake on the way home, because every time they arrived, Kiko was there, waiting, like he knew. The sanctuary staff noticed it first. It was close to midnight when one of the volunteers, Marcus, a retired firefighter who did evening checks, called Ruth over with a flashlight in his hand and worry in his voice. Kiko wasn't in his shelter. He wasn't in the corner under the tree where he usually slept. He was at the far edge of the enclosure, near the eastern fence, lying in the dirt. Just lying there, not pacing, not playful, just still, facing out into the night, toward the hills, toward the open sky, toward nothing. Ruth watched him for a while. He wasn't sleeping. His head was up, ears twitching slightly, eyes fixed in a single direction. He didn't move when they approached, didn't react to the flashlight, just breathed, slow and heavy, like something old and patient. The fence stood between him and the dark fields beyond, but it felt like he saw through it, like he was waiting for something that didn't come by road or path. Ruth didn't say anything at first, just stood there with Marcus and stared at the lion cub, though he wasn't quite a cub anymore. He'd grown, not full-grown, but strong now, steady. There was something different in how he carried himself. And yet, that night, he looked smaller again, softer, like a child who knew something the grown-ups didn't. Across town, in a quiet house filled with paper drawings and pill bottles and folded blankets, the girl couldn't sleep either. She lay in bed, her face lit only by the soft nightlight shaped like a moon. Her mom sat beside her, holding her hand. Her breathing was shallow but calm. The stuffed lion, patched up and still dirty, rested on her chest. Her sketch pad was closed beside her. "I think he's outside," she whispered. Her mom blinked. "Who, sweetheart?" "Kiko," she said. "I think he knows." Then, after a long pause, long enough for her mother to think she'd already drifted off, she added, so softly it was almost just breath, "I'm not scared anymore. He's waiting." And back at the sanctuary, Kiko didn't move all night. Not when the wind picked up. Not when the coyotes cried in the distance. Not even when Ruth came back out at 3 a.m. to check on him again. He was still there, watching, breathing, waiting. She passed away just before sunrise. There was no warning, no alarms, just a soft exhale that never came back. Her mother had fallen asleep in the chair beside her. Her father was curled on the couch across the room, arms around himself like he'd been holding back a flood for weeks. When her mother woke up, it took her a few seconds to realize the silence wasn't normal, that it wasn't the peaceful quiet of deep sleep. It was something deeper, final. She didn't scream. She didn't sob. She just leaned forward and laid her forehead gently against her daughter's. The girl's face was calm, her skin pale but relaxed, no tension, no fear. Her hands were resting on her stomach, and in them was the same stuffed lion Kiko had brought back, tucked tight against her chest like she hadn't let go all night. Beside her pillow was the sketchpad, open. On the page, a savanna drawn in wide yellow strokes, the sun setting low on the horizon. She had drawn herself again, only this time she wasn't sick. She wasn't small. She was standing tall, arms out like wings. And behind her, walking beside her like a shadow with a heartbeat, was Kiko. Older now, proud, his eyes bright. She had drawn them walking toward the light. Together. She didn't sign the page, but in the corner, just above the grass, were 3 words. He found me. Back at Pine Creek, Ruth found Kiko curled up under the same tree by the fence. He didn't get up when she approached. He looked tired, not weak, but finished, like he had completed something he didn't know he'd started. He stood slowly when he saw her, walked to the spot where the girl had once sat in her wheelchair and sniffed the dirt. Then he laid down again, nose pressed to the ground, tail still. Visitors came and went that day, but Kiko barely moved. Some animals bond with people in a way that defies explanation. No training, no commands, just recognition. The sanctuary kept the sketch in a frame, hung it by the entrance. Underneath it, a small plaque read, "She gave him a name. He gave her a way home." And every now and then, when the air gets quiet and the light hits just right, you can still see Kiko lying by the fence, eyes fixed on something far beyond it, waiting.